The Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom is considered by many as the wet fart of RMC hybrids. Now, of course, I'm here today to say that you're all wrong and that the Joker is the best RMC hybrid to ever. FBI, open up! The Joker is an RMC hybrid roller coaster at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom in Vallejo, California. While this is my home park, I will try to stay as unbiased as possible and really look at all angles for when it comes to this roller coaster. According to RCDB, this coaster opened in 2016 following the closure of Roar, a GCI wooden coaster, closing the year prior. With a total track length of 3,200 feet, a max height of 100 feet, max speed of 53 miles per hour, and a vertical angle of 78 degrees. This coaster showcases 3 inversions, a barrel roll, a 0G stall, and a step-up underflip. Good lord, that's a name. This coaster consists of 2 trains, 6 cars each, which can hold 24 riders per train. On a good day.
More on that later.
You see, as mentioned earlier, this ride was constructed by Rocky Mountain Construction, and what makes this coaster special is its, interesting status among enthusiasts. Yeah, interesting status. A lot of people on the internet, and even some people that I've talked to, have mentioned that the Joker at Discovery Kingdom is a weak RMC, it lacks pace, and they even go as far as saying that it is probably one of the weakest hybrids on the face of this planet. After a little investigation and some slight interrogation, I can understand where some of these people are coming from. As mentioned earlier, this coaster has a first drop of 78 degrees, not a 90-degree drop, which most RMCs are accustomed to nowadays. Well, most of them. Some of them aren't, obviously, but when you think RMC, naturally, what comes to your mind is a 90-degree drop, but that's just beside the point. The point is that 78 degrees is rather shallow for an RMC, at least in my eyes. I would think of an RMC anywhere between the 80 to 90 degree drop range, but that's just me speaking. Hit me up in the comments down below if you agree or disagree. Again, another complaint I hear about the Joker is that it has a very boring layout. The ride does have a lot of sweeping turns and a couple of overbanks, but not that many standard elements that you would see on your everyday RMC. Now, of course, comparing one RMC to another RMC would be a little difficult given that they are different models for different areas and different locations. And obviously some RMC hybrids are better than others. That is just a given. Twist Colossus at Magic Mountain or Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. It's perfectly reasonable to say that this ride has a boring layout when other rides pack so much more punch in a layout that is almost the same size, if not bigger. Now, of course, if you were comparing Joker to, let's say, Goliath at Six Flags Great America, that would be a more fair fight as they're both on the lower end of the RMC spectrum. Goliath only has 2 inversions while this has 3. There's barely any airtime on Goliath, and it relies heavily on its first drop and the 0G stall, and the first drop is only 80 to 85 degrees. It's not a full 90. I mean, if we're going to hand out the crown for weakest RMC, I think it's Goliath, but that's just me. Hit me up in the comments down below if you agree or not. I even was told by one of my good friends that this ride was just meh. They stated that it had a few inversions that were okay, and a few pops of airtime which were decent, depending on where you sat, and that this is basically just a sad reboot from an old GCI that used to stand here, which was far superior. Now, before I continue any further, let me just say, pump the brakes there, Junior. While this ride is a little controversial in its overall strengths and weaknesses, I would say that the old Roar layout being mixed in with this new aged hybrid is just what this park needed. But I can also see the bad in it. Personally, I feel like the land that was given to develop the Joker could have been prime real estate for RMC to come in and do a little techno wizardry to create some custom monstrosity that you would only see in Planet Coaster. However, we've all been over this before. The reason why they couldn't come in and build some monstrosity feel like it would remind people of the old layout and the old ride that stood prior. But personally, from the layout that was given, I say they built a fantastic coaster combining the old layout with some new age twists. Naturally, I've never heard of anybody complain about this coaster being rough, as it is an RMC hybrid, and usually iBox styled hybrids don't have a reputation for being rough. I can understand if it's jerky because that's how they're made, but rough is a really strong word to use around hybrids. And if you say that an RMC is rough, well, most likely it was not built by RMC. However, I would say that RMC hybrids are probably one of the smoothest, if not the smoothest roller coasters on the market. One complaint that I do understand, and that I've often experienced myself, is unfortunately getting stapled and experiencing bad dispatches. I understand the operators on this ride are trying their hardest to get the trains out of the station and keep an efficient flow while also maintaining their safety guidelines and making sure that everyone is having a fun time but a safe time. The only problem is that this ride is as finicky as a 2-year-old. It's happy 1 minute and totally fine. The next minute it's totally cranky, doesn't want to work, and starts throwing a temper tantrum. Naturally, with this ride being as finicky as it is, there's a couple of guidelines that you would naturally hear, like do not touch the gate that is in front of you, and please stay behind the yellow line. You hear that universally across all RMC hybrids. However, I hear it the most on Joker at Discovery Kingdom. The sad thing about this ride is that 9 times out of 10, regardless of the population of the park that day, there will always be some sort of line. Due to this ride being one of the more popular rides in the park, I would always advise that this ride would run both of its trains to keep operations as efficient as possible. Now, naturally, I can understand why they wouldn't run 2 train ops if there's a legitimate issue with one of the trains that would deem it unoperable and unable to perform natural operation. The main reason why I believe that they're only running 1 train ops 90% of the time is what I like to call the Six Flags off season. I call it that because there is no off season, or at least for this park. I know some Six Flags parks do have an off season where some don't, but in the parks that do not have an off season like Discovery Kingdom, what I notice is that they like to take one of their trains and run it for the entire rest of the season and send the other 2 trains off for maintenance or do maintenance on them while they're in their maintenance bays. Now, of course, this is a pretty good strategy to use, given that this park does not have an off-season. But see, it's reasons like this why I advocate for all parks to have an off-season, because of the fact that lines get long, the operations become abysmal, and quite frankly, you need more than 1 train on your most popular rides in the park. Again, it's just another reason why I would advocate for this park to have an off-season. I do believe that an off-season, I think, would be beneficial for these rides, not only maintenance-wise, but it would also keep lines down by running 2 trains, and it would keep people like me from bitching and complaining all the time. So that's just my 2 cents on the matter. Breakdown averages and the times that it stays broken down are extremely varied. Sometimes it can be up within 20 minutes, sometimes it can take a whole hour, sometimes, and I mean this is very rarely, it's only happened to me once, they've had to close the ride for the entire rest of the day because it's just having a huge problem that is beyond their control to fix within operational hours. That's just one of the main gripes that I have with this ride. Breakdown averages are way too high. One of the things too is I feel like this RMC is good for the park that it's at, because it's the only RMC hybrid within Northern California, and the other RMC hybrid that's in California is a short 330 miles away in Valencia at Magic Mountain. All I know is for Discovery Kingdom specifically, this is a great ride to have in its ride lineup. I believe it was a good idea to tear down Roar and have RMC come in and RMC it. This ride has a pretty good layout given the space that it had to work with, as well as maintaining the old school layout. And most importantly, this ride does have a ton of airtime packed in. It pulls some nice positives and negatives, and throughout the ride, it does throw in a few moments of good laterals. Now, I know throughout this video, it sounds like I've just been purely bashing this ride. I don't want you to think that at all. I absolutely love this ride. I feel like this is one of the better RMCs that I've been on. Naturally, there are some that are indeed better, given their height difference, given their track length difference, the amount of different elements that it can bring to the table. But for my home park and the park that I go to on a regular basis, I feel like this is a fantastic coaster to have within the lineup. And I don't think it could have been any better, honestly. I mean, they knocked every single thing out of the park, minus a few things here and there regarding operations or maintenance or downtime or anything of that nature. Those are just things that come with the roller coaster. So, I mean, it's nothing against the roller coaster itself. It's just that there are a few things that some people tend to notice, and some more than others, obviously. But in the long run, this is a fantastic coaster that I feel like should not be dubbed the weakest RMC to ever be built. And with that, that will conclude today's video. So do you guys agree with what I've said? Do you think this is a great RMC? Do you think it is the weakest RMC? Do you think that Goliath is the weakest RMC? Go ahead, leave me a comment down below letting me know all your thoughts and opinions. I love hearing from you guys. If you haven't done so already, or if you're new around here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps me out immensely. And if you like today's video, go ahead and click the like button. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Peace out, everybody.